Hey kids, Jimmy Smith with my post-fight breakdown. PFL versus Bellator. Riyadh, Saudi Arabia was yesterday afternoon. I'm recording this on Sunday. All right, so I had a question. When PFL initially acquired Bellator, acquired, whatever, how do you, PFL as a promotion, acquire Bellator without becoming Bellator? How is this going to work? That was one of my big questions, is won't you just become Bellator, essentially? Because I thought, heading into this card, Bellator, talent-wise, just had the superior roster. They had better guys. Their champions were just better. And won't those be the guys you have to push at the end? And so won't you just end up kind of replacing your roster eventually with Bellator's roster? So how do you just not morph into Bellator? Maybe a different version. Maybe they do seasons, whatever it is. But how do you not just morph into Bellator? The only way that would be off the table, or that wouldn't be a problem, is if PFL went 50-50, had a good showing on this champ versus champ fight, and then it's okay, certain PFL guys, you know who to get behind, and then certain Bellator guys, you know who to get behind. And you can kind of push both a little bit until you, of course, at one point, meld the brands together. So, that wasn't the case. For people who don't know, Bellator went 5-1 against PFL. I'll go over my picks. I went 4-2. I'm not patting myself on the back. Most of these odds were unbelievably skewed, so pretty easy picks for the most part. But just breakdown-wise, AJ McKee, Clay Collard, AJ, my boy, Long Beach, California, in the house. Housed him. Absolutely destroyed Clay Collard. Brief exchange on the feet. AJ goes for a takedown. State qualifier his senior year in high school. It's a long story. The team ended up getting kind of disqualified because of some stuff the coach did, so we never saw really what he was going to do his senior year. But anyway, shot him for a takedown, went straight to a guillotine, tight. As soon as Clay Collard tried to escape, there's this transition move where he went guillotine, stepped his leg over into a triangle, transitioned that into an armbar, and it was over. AJ just all over Clay Collard. It was not even a fight. It ended 1 minute, 10 seconds into round number one. AJ McKee setting this off, and you went, oh, that's not good. Next one. So I got that right. I picked AJ McKee. Yoel Romero, Thiago Santos. Both guys looked past their prime. Both guys were kind of plodding. Both guys were kind of slow. They looked 40 and 46, respectively. Yoel Romero, just a little more aggressive than Thiago Santos. Yoel Romero, it was kind of funny. For people who don't know, I always mute the commentary because I get, having done commentary for so long, I hear things you don't hear, and I find it distracting. The only way I can describe it is if you work in television, you watch TV shows, and you start thinking about the camera angles and production more than getting involved in the TV show. When I start listening to commentary, I start hearing things, and I think more about the commentary, and I start thinking of it from a production angle, and it just messes with me. So I have to mute it when I watch fights. So I don't know what the commentators were saying about it, and I don't know who gave the recommendation for Yoel Romero. It was, fight in spurts. To me, that was the exact wrong thing to do. He always has fought in spurts his whole career, and it's cost him in close fights where he's not consistent throughout an entire round, right? Well, he'll explode for 2 minutes and then take a rest, and then explode and then take a rest, and it's cost him in certain decisions. And in this case, he wasn't explosive. He was more methodical, a bit more plodding, kept the physical pressure on a little bit. Neither guy in that much trouble. Neither guy rocked, but it looked like two guys who had seen better days. But Yoel Romero comfortably winning a unanimous decision over Thiago Santos. So that was my first miss. I thought Thiago Santos would win this. I thought the 6 years, I thought it would go the opposite way. That both guys would look slow, but Thiago Santos being 40 would have a little bit more than Yoel Romero. Nope. A 46-year-old Yoel Romero had more than a 40-year-old Thiago Santos. He wins by unanimous decision, so I'm 1-1. Vadim Nemkov, Bruno Capoloza. Look, folks, the best heavyweight in PFL Bellator, let's just call it all PFL right now, is Vadim Nemkov. Until, obviously, Francis Ngannou comes back and shows us he doesn't have any ring rust and he looks good, then he's number one. I got to go right now. Vadim Nemkov is the best heavyweight probably best heavyweight outside the UFC, right? He's the best one right now in this PFL Bellator merger. He looked great against Bruno Capoloza. Fought smart. His right hand was just money the entire time. One of the things I've always said, whenever I coach guys, whenever I break down a fight, there's always these root basic attacks from every single style. If you don't have a defense for that, you're in big trouble. And if you're taking on a wrestler and you can't stop their takedown, you might be better at turns, you might be better at throws, you might be better at other things that'll keep you in the match, but you're going to have a hard time winning if you can't stop the It's the most basic thing in wrestling. If somebody takes you down, you can't take them down, you're probably going to lose. In Muay Thai, it's a leg kick. If you can't deal with your opponent's leg kick in a Muay Thai fight, you got a long night in front of you. You're probably going to lose. Not there are other ways you can't win, but it's going to be rough, okay? In boxing, it's the straight jab and the 1-2. Real simple. Like, if somebody hits you with a 1-2 and they just clock you, you're going to have a rough night. If you can't get past that basic offense of your opponent, you're in trouble. And anytime I analyze a fight and I see a basic offense, right? Someone shoots a basic blast double leg without a whole lot of setup, and he takes the person down, I go, oh, that's going to be rough. Because that's as basic as it gets. You're not making the person go to their second, third, fourth, however many weapons they have. The first one's working. They're going to stay with that. The right hand of Vadim Nemkov, the 1-2, bing, bing, was always right there. That right hand was always landing. And Capelosa just had no answer for it. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, God, this is over. I mean, early on in round number one, I was like, dude, he can't stop a simple right hand. You got to have some answer for that. And you saw Vadim Nemkov, because he's generally a light heavyweight. He's going up to heavyweight for this one. He was cautious. I think he really, and he's well-trained, trains with Fedor. He was really aware that a right hand from this guy can knock me out. So even when he was landing with real authority, when I thought, all right, if he throws 3 or 4, he's going to knock this guy out, he didn't do that. He went, okay, I'm landing well with the right hand. Let's just get ahead, stay ahead. Let's not do anything crazy here and chop this guy down. Then, of course, going to the takedown, getting on top. It was round number 2 that he got that. It was over. Easy arm triangle, 2 minutes, 13 seconds in round number 2. Bruno Capelosa went all the way out. Vadim Nemkov never in trouble. Money with the leg kick, money with the right hand. He looked like the most complete deadly heavyweight. He's a little small. That's the only issue I see moving forward. Obviously, we'll get to the heavyweight final in a minute. But when I look at his future and how far can he go, provided he doesn't have size issues, he's just running into guys who are too big for him to deal with, he's the most skilled fighter in the heavyweight division in this PFL Bellator conglomerate. So, he looked great. I picked Vadim Nemkov to win. I think I predicted knockout, if I'm not mistaken. Jason Jackson, Ray Bradaboy Cooper III. This one was tough to watch, and I'm a fan of Jason Jackson. Now, I don't not like Ray Bradaboy Cooper III. I like him. But it looked like a complete professional versus a guy who maybe has power, can do a couple things. The first thing that I always try to remember, the first thing that kind of jumps into my brain when I was watching the fight, Jason Jackson looked big. Big. I thought Ray Bradaboy Cooper would have a serious size advantage. He's fought at welterweight before. He's really middleweight size. Nope. Jason Jackson looked big, was taking him apart from the outside, landing leg kicks, and then midway through round number 1, he caught Ray Bradaboy Cooper a little straight-legged. Meaning he lifted his leg and his knee kind of went back a little bit, and he caught him with a straight leg, and he started limping on that leg. And I went, this is over. This is over. He was better. He was more technical. He was sharper. He was more accurate. He was more versatile. He was the better fighter from the beginning, obviously. And remember, up to this point, Bellator's won every fight, and they haven't been particularly close. This one was almost hard to watch. Like, oh my God, he's so much better. And then he got the takedown, beat him up, and it was over with. And that was in round 2, 23 seconds in. This was over really at the end of round number 1. Bradaboy just didn't have the skill set to deal with Jason Jackson. It's just from the beginning, and it was painfully obvious. He didn't have the skill set. So Jason Jackson easily beats Ray Bradaboy Cooper III. I'm sitting there going, oh my God, this has been a wash so far. 4 in a row, super easy. The only pick I missed was the one where I actually thought the PFL fighter might win. Jesus. So we get into the co-main event, Johnny Eblen, Impa Kasangane. We saw the vulnerabilities of Johnny Eblen in this fight. A great thing that Big John McCarthy taught me one time, and it was Gegard Mousasi versus Alexander Shlemenko when Gegard made his Bellator debut. We were at the Mohegan Sun, and I think I scored the fight for Shlemenko, but Gegard won the fight, which I understood. It was a close fight. And I'm talking to Big John afterward because, I know Big John well, and we're talking. He said, "Who'd you score for?" And I said, Shlemenko. And he said, "You know what? In the street, Shlemenko won that fight. In an MMA competition with judges and rounds, Gegard won that fight." And this was one of those cases as well, where on the street, Johnny Eblen lost that fight. In a athletic competition with a judge and a timer and all those things and rounds, Johnny Eblen won the fight. Why? Round number 1, I thought Johnny Eblen won. He controlled the range a little bit. It was a close first round. And people who give it to Impa Kasanganay, I believe you, right? I'm not going to argue with you that much. Round number 2, Impa Kasanganay drops Johnny Eblen. And I went, oh, this is over. He dropped him hard. And then was beating the dog piss out of him first half of that round. Longer than the first half of the round. Beating him up. Sharp, tight combinations, accurate. Johnny Eblen hanging on for dear life. Johnny Eblen able to get a takedown at the end of round number 2 that kept it from being a 10-8. So I was sitting there, the first part of the round, I was either going to finish him or he's going to get a 10-8 round and put this one out of reach. Nope. Johnny Eblen able to get a takedown late enough that the judge is going to go 10-9. I haven't looked at the scorecards, so I don't know if a judge did give him 10-8. Please, in the comment section, let me know. But I didn't think anybody gave him a 10-8 round in round number 2 in Impa Kasanganay. But what it showed is the limitation of Johnny Eblen when he can't get the takedown. If his takedown isn't a factor in the fight, he doesn't need it all the time, every time, but it's got to be there when he needs it. He's a different guy when it's not there. And Impa Kasanganay controlled range so well, and his combinations were so tight and sharp. You're giving your opponent all of these landmines in between his hips and your hips. He's throwing so well that you've got to manage all this. All these attacks on the way in. And Johnny Eblen couldn't really do that. And I thought he did a great job. And he beat the crap out of Johnny Eblen in round number 2. Beat him up, swelled him up. Started round 3, I was like, man, Eblen's in trouble. Eblen, though, in round number 3, able to make his takedown a factor again. Took him down, got on top, finished the round on his back. Landed some decent shots on his feet, but Kasanganay just couldn't replicate what he had done in round number 2 in round number 3. So I gave Eblen rounds 1 and 3. Every round was a 10-9, and I thought he won 2 rounds to 1. Some people disagreed, and that's fine. But we also saw the limitations of Johnny Eblen, who had looked fantastic up to this point in his Bellator career. But you saw if he can't get the take, and he's forced into a kickboxing match, Impa Kasanganay is a good striker. There are better strikers out there. And so that's going to be the problem for Johnny Eblen is, okay, and there are going to be these times when you can't take somebody down, and you got to stand there and brawl with them, and his style's a little basic. He had trouble with a good combination striker, but he did win. So once again, Bellator wins again. This is the only one, by the way, that was close. Johnny Eblen and Impa Kasanganay were they're going to decision, and it was a split decision, and I wasn't sure which way it was going to go. But AJ McKee, Yoel Romero, Vadim Nemkov, Jason Jackson, Johnny Eblen, 5 in a row for Bellator. 5 in a row, only one of them close. Renan Ferreira, Ryan Bader, only way to describe this, over 21 seconds of round number 1, the first thing Renan Ferreira threw landed. Put Ryan Bader down, and that was it. A lot of people complaining about the shots to the back of the head. As I've explained, and once again, I'm not listening to the commentators, I don't really know, you're not allowed to target the back of the head. If you're throwing and the person's moving, and they move the head into your hand, that's not your problem. I didn't think anything was going to end this stoppage. As soon as he hit the ground, you have a giant on top of you. Ryan Bader is a small heavyweight under the best of circumstances. Renan Ferreira is a big heavyweight under the best of circumstances. So one thing Ryan Bader couldn't do is get clipped, get dropped, and have this guy on top of him, especially early in the fight. All of those things happened. Ryan Bader got blasted. PFL able to get that money shot at the end. Our guy won the heavyweight fight. Our guy is going to take on Francis Ngannou. They ended on a high note. But you can't cover up 5-1. You just, that's going to be the difficulty. As I said when I broke this one down, when I spoke to Don, and by the way, I picked Ryan Bader, so my pick's 4-2 on the night. I thought Bellator would go 5-1. I mispicked the one that they were going to win. I thought it would be Yoel Romero. It ended up being the Thiago Santos fight. Ended up being the Ryan Bader fight. But Ryan Bader losing once again lets Bellator PFL finish on a high note. As I said when I broke this thing down, Don Davis, when I interviewed him on my SiriusXM show, and I said, well, aren't you going to be a little bit rooting for your PFL guys? And he said, oh, they're all my guys. The problem is, and I was keeping an eye on social media and seeing what people were saying about it, I had somebody say, why don't you just call it Bellator Fighting League now? And I went, oh, damn. But that's kind of the problem, is you set it up, who takes the throne? Bellator took the throne 5-1. 5-1, they took the throne. And only one fight was even competitive. So the difficulty there is, the perception of the fans in the United States over the last decade or so is UFC, Bellator, PFL. And this show last Saturday confirmed that. That, if you put 10 Bellator guys up against 10 PFL guys, probably 8 or 9 Bellator guys are going to win. And so it's this weird thing that we've never seen before, which is a promotion got acquired that has so far better talent than the promotion that acquired it. We've never seen that before. It's the upside down weird logic of MMA that having this great roster, which I believe Bellator did have a great roster, didn't help them financially necessarily. And so PFL just happened to be, with their investment capital and all that stuff, in a better position than Bellator, despite having an incredibly talented roster. And so this is the first one. How it's going to work from here on out, I don't know. But the idea of PFL is going to do its thing, Bellator is going to do its thing, and at the end they all fight. Fine, but at a certain point, if this keeps happening, you have to integrate that talent into Bellator somehow and make them forget that Bellator is its own entity. I said in the breakdown that people tend to forget that Justin Gaethje was a World Series of Fighting guy when he came to the UFC. Michael Chandler was a Bellator guy when he came to the UFC. Luke Rockhold was a Strikeforce guy. After a while, you forget that. After a few fights, it's just another UFC guy. You don't think of DC as the Strikeforce guy anymore. But if you're constantly putting the Bellator label on them, and they're off in this separate European, it seems, fighting series, and then at the end they fight PFL, you can only get housed so many times before you're kind of weirdly hurting your own brand. It's a tough problem that PFL is going to have to work out. You can't have Bellator beating the PFL guys every time they get together, and then but the major brand is PFL. It's weird. This is like, when the UFC acquired Pride, if the Pride fighters had come over and just taken the belt in every weight class, you start going, oh crap. Or same thing in Strikeforce. Now, some guys did well, but it wasn't a wash at all by any stretch of the imagination. So PFL is really in uncharted territory here. They're really in uncharted territory. I don't know what they're going to do moving forward, how they integrate these two brands, because to me, if you keep them separate, you almost highlight the negative. If this had been an even matchup, right? 6 matches, they go 3-3, even 4-2. Okay, some PFL guys might come out there and really do something in the next year or so, whatever. It would be an exciting matchup. But if, 5-1, once again, of the 5 Bellator wins, only 1 was competitive. The idea that keeping them as separate entities highlights the fact that one branch has a lot more talent than the other right now. We'll see how it goes in a year and a half, and how they end up, mixing the teams up a little bit. It's going to be interesting. But that was the first card. That's what happened. 4-2 on my picks. Not that difficult with those spreads and the way these fights were going to go. But how does PFL move forward with this idea that who takes the throne? Bellator took the throne. For sure. How do they change that in a very dramatic way? That's the question. Let me know what you think in the comment section. I'll see you next time.